Now, I am going to go ahead and introduce Lady Beatrice de Salas. And she is a United Nations multilingual translator interpreter and a certified member of the American Translators Association, ATA, a United Nations Global Goodwill and UPF Peace Ambassador. She's a journalist, published author, and a member of the American Society of Journalists and Authors, ASJA. She has worked with several clients from Fortune 500 companies, with clients including Tony Robbins, former president of the USA, Bill Clinton. She is a trustee member of the board of members for the African Views Organization and also International Society for Peace and Safety, ISOPS. Please help me welcome Lady Beatrice de Salas. How are you doing today? I will ask you to unmute here.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's a big honor for me to be here. Thank you for all my friends who are supporting and watching this now. Thank you, Dr. Wale, for this opportunity, and all of the other people who helped us in this team make this possible. I'm ready to start with Madame. Are we going to talk about Madame Intap now? Invite her over.
So it looks like Madame Intap is not online right now. Madame Intap, are you online? Okay, so I'm not seeing her online. You can go ahead and just do the introduction. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about a law that was created in Brazil. It's a law that was very important because statistics shows how the violence is the worst form of like abuse and aggression in the world. So there in Brazil, there was a lady in the 80s, in 1983, this lady, she was a biochemist and she was in her house sleeping, and she was shot in the arm by her husband. I wrote about this in our book, so there's a chapter about that, and I think it's very important for us to understand the whole context. She became paraplegic and couldn't feel anything from her waist down. After many surgeries and trying to see what she could do, she went back home 2 weeks later after all the surgeries. And when she came back home, he tried to electrocute her and drown her in her bath at home. So after 19 years, he had not been in jail and punished. Finally, he got to be punished for 2 years in prison. And in 2004, he was set free and innocent from this abuse. So she not only became like, she didn't decide not to become a victim. She became a notable figure in the movement of women's rights. And thanks to her efforts, this law was created in Brazil with her name, Maria da Penha. She's still a leader in the movement. She's on her 70s, late 70s, but she's defending women's rights for all these years, instead of becoming like a victim of being a paraplegic. She had psychological traumas. She had everything you can imagine. You know, I think that it's very important to talk about the statistics, because in modern days, the gender-based violence represents such a direct threat for women, females in all ages, kids and girls, old ladies and adults like. So the fight for gender equality and women's empowerment is very, very important for us and very inspiring. I wrote about that, the story as an inspiration for most people. And I am very happy that there's like gender inequality laws that are protecting women nowadays from serious abusers. In the modern society, I think we all have to join our actions to become more impactful and be able to help achieve a better result together, a better goal, a better dream. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bia, for sharing that story. I also see a comment in there that the Maria de Pena Act addresses violence against women. Thank you, Ms. Lester, on that. So here's a first-hand story of something that happened, that was documented in terms of violence that is set against women. Such a gruesome activity. And this is why we're here, to address that. How can we prevent this from happening, right? How can we stop something from happening? It's unfortunate that we cannot be in each and every household, but with education and awareness, and in my own personal opinion, stronger, stronger court judgments. And this might sound mean, but when it comes to the law, if something is put legally into action, that can also help reduce the statistics that we're seeing. Thank you for sharing that information with also Her Excellency Intam Diaye, who unfortunately is not with us today. Now, we will go ahead and move on. Do we have any questions for Lady Beer in terms of what was said? Any comments from anyone? Feel free that you can chat. You can also raise your hand, and then we can open up so that you can speak. Okay, I am not seeing anything. I will go ahead and we will move on to our next speaker, and Lady Gabriela Mendes Chavez. Thank you for being with us. Lady Gabriela, everyone, help me welcome her. She's an economist and founder of Northfront Financial Empowerment, and she is from Brazil. We are still speaking on the supremacy of constitutions, challenges, and solutions. And I ask you, Lady Gabriela, to go ahead and share what your insight is and what your input is. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you listen me well?
Yes.
So I thank you very much for the opportunity to share a bit about what's going on in Brazil. And I think this debate is very important for all of us. Here in Brazil, we are living a very hard contest. And I think it's important to start with that because COVID situation is reaching a very terrible situation here in Brazil. Now we have around 3,000 of people dying per day, and we are living a real genocide. And this also obviously affects all the women. Women in Brazil were several impacted by, especially economically, because they are in the sectors of economy of services and they inform jobs. So statistics here shows that a lot of women lose their jobs, and those who keep their jobs, they are struggling a lot to keep working because we have now millions of children outside from school, what take us to the reproductive labor, because now these kids are at home, and the social division of labor puts the responsibility to take care of the children in the women. Also, all the situation puts at women in the double or triple journeys, because in the beginning of COVID pandemic, the president of Brazil said that each family is responsible to take care of its elders. It's a movement that shows what's going on in Brazil, because once the government is taking out himself of the responsibility to drive this crisis. Also, here in Brazil, because of the economic impact of this pandemic situation, we had emergency aid, and this emergency aid run in the last year. It was an amount of money that was given to the families that was impacted by these situations. And it's important to highlight that the benefit for women, and especially for women who had children, was bigger. But this benefit stopped December last year, and the COVID situation is keeping on. So now we have a very difficult situation, because we are 3 months without any financial aid for those women who lost their jobs, who cannot made their service and cannot work because of the situation that we are living. So it's important to say that now there's a lot of women in Brazil who are passing through very hard, they are economically vulnerable because they have no funds, and also we are passing through an inflation in the basic food, which means that life is getting really complicated here. um, when it comes to the violence, all the situations put women in more vulnerable conditions. So Beatriz spoke up very well about the law we have here in Brazil to protect women against the violence. And there is some data that the last year we have 105,000 of complaints of violence against women, and 72% was about domestic violence and family violence. So this scenario that put that this isolation scenario also show us that the domestic violence increased a lot in Brazil, and there's a lot of challenge when it comes to the denunciar, Beatriz, to complain about it, because
I can help if you ever need, okay?
if I need something, I need your help. So there's a really big difficult now because we are talking about isolation. We have laws in Brazil that obligate like hotels and public spaces to make a denuncia, the complaint about the violent situation. So now the responsibility to complain when it comes to domestic violence and gender violence is not only for the victim, but also those who see this, they are obligated to make the complaint in the police. But also we have a challenge when it comes to what are we going to do with those men in violence. So now we have the Maria da Penha law says about imprisonment, but also they have an experience that I think is really important. Is not a solution for short time, but it's a medium-term solution. That is groups, focal groups of those men who committed the violent action, and they have some groups in Brazil. The judge, they obligate those men to those groups who are run by a psychologist, and this experience have really a good insight when it comes to give another solutions for this issue, that not only the massive incarceration. And also in Brazil in last year, because of the increase of the number of domestic violence, the government has opened channels on WhatsApp and Telegram to facilitate the complaints, the denuncias. So um, they have last year between 10,000 and 2,000 of cases per day. It's really important that we work on these numbers, because we knew since the beginning of this crisis that the isolation and the vulnerability of women would increase all this violent situation. But I think it's important to reach these numbers when it comes to the world, because the situation is really bad. And when it comes to the financial vulnerability that women are facing now, I believe this is a point that makes all this violence deeper and deeper. So I think I had 10 minutes. I don't know if I'm here, but that's my contribution. Now I can answer
Yeah.
questions, etc.
Absolutely. Do we have any questions from anyone?
I would like to make a question, if it's okay. I think it's very important that you said about the issue that violence was increased after the pandemics, domestic violence, and women being alone at home with their perpetrators. It's been very hard during the pandemics. How do we monitor that?
Well, it's really important to, like here in Brazil, we have one system that put all these denunces, these complements together. So I think we need to create systems that monitoring, but also we still have an issue that a culture that puts fear on women to make the compliment to the authorities. So here in Brazil, we used to have most of the policy stations were run by men. So it was necessary here in Brazil to create the policy for women, the policy station for women that were run by women to facilitate for those women to make the compliments and to denunciate those violence. Because what happened used to happen here in Brazil is that the women went to police station to make a compliment, and the police said, no, you cannot prove that, you cannot do that. So these women, she had to go for at least 3 or 4 police stations to make their compliment. So now with those channels, it's easier to make the compliment, but also we have a challenge when it comes to the consequences and the response that the authorities will give for the situation. And I repeat, the economic vulnerability is something that it affects a lot this violent situation, because there's a lot of women who depends financially and economically of their abuser. So I think it's really important to run public policies that guarantee that those women in situation of domestic violence, they can have a place to stay, a safe place to stay, and also an emergency aid for those women to rebuild their lives. I think this is a policy that we need to run in all over the world, because a woman who was suffering domestic violence, she needs also financial support to leave the situation. And I think that's an agenda of discussion that we all have to make.
Hello, can I make a question?
Go ahead, thank you.
Hello, my name is Bia Moremi. I'm from Brazil also, and I was listening to Gabriela, and I just want to listen about her, what her think. In Brazil, violence against Black women were increasing when the violence against white women were decreasing. So it's also something that we have to make this difference when we talk about gender violence here in Brazil, because Black women suffer a lot more domestic violence than white women. And the numbers of white women were really decreasing, and Black women were really getting higher and higher. So I would like to listen to you about that.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to understand when the race and gender and class, when it cross. So in Brazil, we see that these policies that were created to avoid the gender violence, they reach easily white women because of the access in the material access, the access to the laws, the access to the space to make the compliments. So this point that Bia Moremi said to us, it's really important to understand, because when it comes to Brazil, the situation of Black women and non-Black and white women, there is a abysm. Like a Black woman in Brazil can earn 30% less than a white woman. And it's really important for us to understand how also the economic structure put women in the vulnerability of this situation of gender violence, especially the domestic violence. So it's important that also all these policies think about the race discrimination, because it's something that structure all the relations in the society. So I believe this is a really important point, and the policies need to consider the racial issues, and how these issues affect those women, because we have here in Brazil, when it comes to healthy system, the Black women has less access. Like COVID, it's a virus, it can take any person, but here in Brazil, the Black population died more than the white one. So when we say about these 3,000 persons dying per day here in Brazil, most of them are Black, because they have no access to the intensive attendance. The hospitals who are full are the hospitals in the peripheries. So those who cannot pay for these services, for salvation, for healthy, they are dying faster.
Wonderful. I am going to summarize everything that just got said in this segment for everybody. At the end of this, we still have a couple more speakers to go. I'll summarize everything. I realize what the issues are. We can share that together. Hello, can you make your comment, please?
Yes. So thank you for having me in this venue. So I just want to add something to the excellent presentation okay. I'm sorry, of Gabriela. Can you hear me? Oh, I don't. And can you see me?
We can hear you. We can see you. So go ahead. We can see you. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to add one thing to the excellent presentation of Gabriela, that we face, I would say, institutional racism in terms of research here. For instance, we don't have this intersection like gender, race, and class in our research here in Brazil. And that's it's really very huge impediment to really check what happens to Black women. For instance, I just want to comment with you, because I don't have this, it's not a research, but it's just an observation. For instance, in this this period, we're having some announcement of employment for Black, exclusive for Black people. And I was just reading some of them, and I found out that these companies that are at first being inclusive companies, they are announcing very short time jobs for Black women. We have to demonstrate a high technical qualification and abilities, skills, and we are supposed to earn a very low salaries. So I think it's a very important issue, and we have to be very careful with that, because our community is the most fragile community, and it's really dangerous. So what I'm observing, that maybe we are facing accumulation, capital accumulation, based on this very cheap jobs from Black community, especially Black women. So I just want to comment this with you. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, I applaud you for speaking on that. There's an economic factor, a psychological factor, a racial factor, a class factor, a segregation factor. Now, I do have a couple more speakers that are going to speak, and I want you to listen to what they're going to say, because we're going to have people speaking about the law. So I want you to take everything into consideration with what Lady Gabriela mentioned, what our previous speakers mentioned. Think about the economic factor, the pandemic factor. Think about the segregation, the racial, the classes. Think about how everything is reported to the law. Think about the different classes when it comes to color, and how all this ties into what we're talking about today, which is anti-violence against women, because it all ties together. I want you to think about that as we move on to the next speakers. Listen to what they're saying, formulate your question intelligently, because now you have different factors that are all tied together that can prevent something from being reported. There's corruption factor. Think about that as well. So I'm going to move on to the next speaker so that you have the complete basis, right, in terms of what our speakers have to say. And then we will address questions. So any questions you have, if you know you have your question now, type it in. I promise I will address it. All right. Thank you so much, Lady Gabriela, Lady Beer. Thank you, Helloa, for speaking up. Thank you, everybody, for putting in your inputs in terms of what we're talking about. And we are going to go ahead and move on, okay? Because we do have the legal side, legal aspect of this. So to move on, I am going to be coming to you, Lady Angela, just to hear your perspective as well. So we're going to be hearing this from a different world altogether, understanding that this is something that's affecting us on a global level, right? Not only on a local level. Now, Lady Angela, thank you so much for being with us today. And she is the Special Officer for International Relations, Deputy Speaker of the Malaysian Parliament Office. Now, prior among her duties, she has a role as the Director General of the World Women Organization and the Universal Declaration of Rights. She is also a trustee of African Views Organization. Thank you so much, Lady Angela, and thank you for joining us today. And we are excited to hear your perspective as we try to mitigate this issue from women from different backgrounds. So thank you for joining us.
Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you for your attention to gender issues. I'm also thanks Dr. Wali for arranging me to listen to all of your speeches. Today, my legislatures on Asian and London have come to a successful conclusion, and I'm very happy to participate in the legislative topic tonight. At the same time, I would like to send you my greetings from the World Women Organization. Before I became Director General of the World Women Organization, I was Director of the Legislative Assembly for quite a long time. At present, I'm still a political representative in Parliament Deputy Speaker Office. However, my speech tonight will not represent any political position, but will share my experience with you. The establishment of legislation is never for a single group, but for the peace and balance of the country and society. I recognize that with the development of gender equality, women have made great progress. Some countries have set up women's ministries. For example, Malaysia also have women ministry. However, when the gender equality of legislation is to be further promoted. There are also solidification and stagnation. There are many confrontations in the implementation, and there is a lack of understanding. The outbreak of COVID-19 further exacerbated this situation. Even gender equality is used by some countries as a political weapon and tools to interfere in other countries' internal affairs and create conflicts. This made me fall into introspection and thinking. Therefore, based on our years of legislative experience and practice, the World Women Organization have announced the gender harmony last year, 5th September. In this way, when gender equality is used as a weapon and tool, we hope gender harmony can objectively prevent this situation from worsening. And it will be reduce legislative and social security concerns, and also increase the confidence of different countries. For this second, I would like to briefly introduce the World Women Organization. We are an intergovernmental organization. Our chairman of Political Bureau is current Speaker of Malaysian Parliament, Dato' Rashid, which is mainly composed of people with political and legislative experience and background in WWO, in World Women Organization. I start this mission because of wishes of former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan when he visited Malaysia, and we also work with government and we also would like to work with the governments and NGOs. The attitude of the World Women Organizations is that based on gender harmony. On the issues of gender harm, whether men harm women or women harm men, regardless of gender, as long as someone hurts the safety of others, it is a quality and source of the individual perpetrator, and this individual needs to be punished. To this end, we will also hold the physical conference, the World Women Development and Asia African Hemorrhoid Society Conference in Asia. At this conference, we will bring women's sustainable development, gender harmony, hemorrhoid society together. We hope that through this conference, people will learn about the milestone of the World Women Organization's mission and gender harmony, hemorrhoid society includes promote gender harmony to achieve the elimination of gender violence. Although human peace is not achieved in a day, there are still injuries in the world, include gender violence. We would like to invite all of you achieve safe and peace. The World Women Organization firmly believes that the highest equality is harmony, and our aim is gender harmony, hemorrhoid society, human peace, to achieve human peace. As the Director General of the World Women Organization, I have a grand vision. I hope that one day the World Women Organization can realize that the world no longer needs gender organizations, including the World Women Organization, because we believe the arriving of the day is not only the hope, the wishes of human peace, but also the cornerstone of moving from gender harmony to a harmonious society. At the time, if the World Women Organization still there exists, then I hope that I hope it's because our efforts have been recognized to be memory remarks of gender. Thank you for your listening to me. I wish this event a complete success.
Thank you so much, Lady Angela, for presenting that. So just to reiterate, she is talking from a legislation point of view and encouraging gender harmony and also making an emphasis on peace. I'm going to ask you, Lady Angela, if you can, in the chat, can you please put when the conference is and how people can be part of that conference as well? So if you can put that in the chat. Do we have any immediate questions for Lady Angela in terms of what she just spoke about? Do we have any immediate questions? Perfect. So if we don't have any immediate questions, I'll reiterate this. So please post when the conference is. I think that's important because you get to hear different perspectives from different ethnic groups and in terms of mitigating the situation. And we are all working collectively as a world, right? So we will go ahead and see that in the chat. Now, thank you so much for presenting that. It was a pleasure to have you, Lady Angela. We are going to move on to our next speaker, and we have Lady Hangwei Lee. Lady Hangwei Lee, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, just to give you a little bio on her, she is an advisor, ladies and gentlemen, of the African Views Organization and a PhD candidate in politics and international studies at SOAS, that's the University of London. She was also a pre-doctoral fellow at Harvard Kennedy School and a researcher at the Global Development Policy Center, Boston University. Prior to her current gig, she worked as a journalist and researcher for 3 years in Africa, countries like Ghana, Zambia, and Tanzania. She has working experiences with the United Nations Information Center, Council of Europe, and University of Zambia. Her work has been published in various medical platforms, and she is currently working on a variety of initiatives that foster understanding and dialogue between China, Africa, and the Western world. She will talk to us about China's status on women. Welcome and thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for the very kind introduction, Madam Moderator, and also thanks for the organizer for the invitation. It's my pleasure. So before I get started, I'd like to clarify that I'm not speaking on behalf of any government or any specific institution, but in a purely personal capacity as a woman and also as a scholar. So in my talk today, I will be trying to provide a quick update on China's status on women, especially women in leadership. And so the Constitution of the People's Republic of China, which was enacted in 1954, stated that women and men should have equal rights. And to promote gender equality, the Chinese government promoted the slogan, "Women hold up half the sky," to illustrate the importance of women to China's economic success. And a series of data gives an optimistic outlook on women's development in China. For instance, in 2017, there were 340 million working women, doubling the figure in 1978, and the illiteracy rate among females aged 15 or above dropped from 90% before the founding of the People's Republic of China to 7.3% in 2017. So which was a historic change. And we also know that China's biggest annual legislative event that consists of the People's National Congress and also the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, and also known as the Two Sessions, just concluded earlier this month. And this year there were 742 female deputies and also 440 female members, respectively, making a historic high for female representation. And the number of women in China's legislature is rising, but notably there are still far fewer than men. Women only account for about 1/4 of the National People's Congress membership. And the ratio in China's legislature is equal to the world average, which is 25%, according to data by the World Bank. It is also higher than the average of East Asia and the Pacific, which is 21%. And China was ranked 86th out of 192 countries for its representation of women in the national parliament, according to the latest rankings by the Geneva-based Interparliamentary Union. And of course, we also need to adopt an intersectional lens to look at women's representation, as many of the speakers mentioned earlier. So groups such as government officials, Communist Party cadres, and also business elites are generally overrepresented. And there is an underrepresentation of the working class, especially grassroots women representatives. We also need to note that there is just one woman in the 25-member Politburo of the Communist Party. So men are not only dominating important positions in the Chinese political system, but also top academics and also the judicial system, as well as the business world. And in the business world, although China is ahead of the curve when it comes to gender diversity in the workplace and has one of the highest rates in the world of women participating in the labor force, women are still significantly underrepresented in senior executive positions. And in employment, women accounted for less than 30% of leadership positions. And there is also, of course, evidence of worsening bias in views about women's leadership in the workplace in the Chinese society. And many people still tend to view female leaders as bossy women who are working machines or do not care about family. And retirement policy also matter. For instance, current retirement policy requires female public servants stop working up to 10 years earlier than men. For government employees, including those at state-owned enterprise, the mandatory retirement age for men is 60 or 65, while women retire at the age of 50 or 55. So there are some experts argue that this age gap perpetuates perceptions women are physically unable to work as long as men and discourages employers from hiring women for long-term position. And it also leads to less opportunities for women seeking advancement in Chinese politics, where senior government officials often only reach the height of power as they near their 60s. So let me conclude. Since China's opening up in 1978, China has created tremendous economic opportunities for women, but gender discrimination in employment remains widespread. And it is certainly very inspiring for us to see the significant achievements in China in terms of women empowerment and also promotion of women's rights. However, it must be noted there are still many challenges to the full realization of the development goals of women outlined in the Beijing Declaration and or Platform for Action. So in order to improve female representation in politics, cooperate academics and also judicial systems and create a more gender balanced workforce, greater policy intervention, providing targeted support for women, especially working class and also grassroots women, are very important. More stringent enforcement of anti-discrimination laws are also needed, urgently needed. And we need to make sure we remove those barriers to encourage and facilitate women to step forward and move forward. I think I'll end here. Thank you very much.
So much. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for tackling the issue when it comes to the working class, and also how the issue of less representation of women when it comes to decision making can affect how what we're talking about today moves forward or not. So I agree with you. We do need to have more female representation in each country, in anywhere in the world, when it comes to decision making, whether it's from a legal perspective, whether it's from acts perspective, or from protecting the women. We do need to have a representation of more women. Now, we also need to have a representation of more men, but who also understand how this is affecting women. Thank you for presenting that.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure having you on here. We appreciate you. Now I'll pose a quick question to you that just came to our chat. So does China have legislation on VAW, for example, on domestic violence or sexual harassment in the workplace?
Yes, we do. But I'm not specialized on law, so maybe I can't provide you much information there. But there is a debate because there is a change of law in terms of divorce. So basically, couples wish to file for divorce in China are facing a new law, which just I think implemented earlier this year. The law that came into force on January 1st this year, asks divorcing couples to complete a mandatory 30 days cooling off period, they call it cooling off period, to reconsider their decision of separating. And many Chinese feminists, they were very angry about this, the change of law, because this is not good for women, especially those women who are facing domestic violence.
You know what, I can see when you say the 30-day cooling off period, at first I was smiling. I'm like, okay, we do need that. But now I see from your perspective how this can actually affect relationship where there's violence included, because that 30 days kind of extends that. So that's like a 50-50 win-to-win situation where it can be an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time. So laws need to be written within that 30-day cooling off period.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Absolutely, you're welcome. All right, do we have any immediate questions? We will proceed. Like I said, we do have, I can see your question, Isaac. We do have presentations on law. I really would love everyone to hear this perspective first, and then we can go ahead and address this. Actually, you know, let me ask you this question again, because this is specific to China. Isaac, I'll pose your question now because it's very specific. So what is China learning from other countries in bridging the gap? Is China learning anything from Africa or other continents? This is for you, Ms. Han Wei. Is there anything that China is learning from other continents in terms of bridging this gap?
You mean bridging the gap in terms of women representation, or in terms of?
Right. Yeah, so I can make it easier for you. So in terms of like with the policies in place, with the laws, or Isaac, would you like to expand on your question a little bit since you want to know the answer?
Yes, certainly, in terms of the women representations and all that, specific to the subject of debate today.
I wish, I actually wish the Chinese government can do more in terms of that. For example, I know there are a number of African countries actually doing better than this, than China in terms of women representation in leadership. And also I think in some Scandinavian countries, they probably have a law in written that women should have a quarter of, I don't know, I can't remember the exact number, but it's something like more than 30% or 40% women representatives in parliament. But I don't think China has this kind of law. And I think there are actually many things that China can learn from both Africa and also from the rest of the world. And more communication and more exchange of information and more sharing are definitely needed.
Perfect. Isaac, does that answer your question?
Excellent. China, the next global power. We love you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for that. There's a question for you, Dr. Lee, if you can answer to that. This is for the 30-day cooling off period. So there's a question in there, and I think everyone would benefit from it. It's in the chat. So if you don't mind taking some time to answer that question, I am pretty sure we have a lot of people curious about this.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm
So
sure.
yes, if you can answer that in the chat,
Yeah.
I will proceed with our presentation.
Yeah, I saw it, and I think it's Ms. Lester's question. Do they have to share the same home, or can one partner move out? I'm not sure whether it is written in the law, but I mean, any women who have agency, have more agency, they can definitely make their own decision. But the reality is that many men who have violent tendency, probably are difficult to accept those, or sometimes women in vulnerability are having difficulties to move into another places or living home. So then these are the challenges. I think that the law wasn't very specific, and then this is certainly very problematic, and that's why it's a lot of debates on social media as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. So when we get more information on that, and let me remind everyone that this is something that you can also search if you can on your own on the internet. You can search this 30-day cooling off period, and she did just post her email address in there with specific questions. Feel free to connect. All right, thank you for that presentation, Dr. Lee. We are going to move on with our next presentation, and we do have Chief Anita. And this is Chief Anita Nana Okuribido. And Chief Anita became the national president of the Women in Renewable Energy Association after serving as the national coordinator of the Association of Nigerian Women Business Network, and that's ANWBN. She served as the deputy chairman of Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture, NACCIMA. Women's Group, NAWORG, and as the chairman of Women in Sustainable Power Africa Network, that's WISPA Net. She is the founder and chairman of Women Green Energy Institute and Simple Agrotech Limited Principle, which controls 60 hectares of arable land to boost agriculture and food security. Founder and chairman of the Digital Network for Women Empowerment. Chief Anita is also the board member of the Solar Energy Program of the Bank of Industry, which has commissioned over 40 off-grid solar power plants for rural communities without power. She serves as the vice chairman of Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, which is abbreviated as NCDMB, Diversity Sectoral Working Group, Women in Energy, Oil and Gas, and board executive trustee of our organization, African Views Organization. Chief Anita, welcome so much to our program. It's a pleasure to have you. Chief Anita, if you are here, you are currently on mute because I cannot hear you. Okay, whilst I'm still waiting for Chief Anita to be on here and to unmute, and just let me know in the chat, we will proceed with you, Chief Anita. But let me just remind everybody where we are at with our program. With our program, after we have Chief Anita's presentation, we will have Lady Agnes and Lady Ugoma, and we'll also have Lady Okweme, Lady Jessica, with our remaining presentations, and that will be concluding our program. And just note that we will have such a fun little activity that we have planned for everyone, like I said, where we are going to be exercising our vocal cords. So we will all be doing something that has to do with that. Chief Anita, do we have your presentation ready? All right, just let me know when we're ready. I am going to be moving on. With our next presentation, I will go ahead and present Lady Ukweme Akwan Okon. Lady Ukweme is the author of award-winning The Value Strings. This is a book on transitional life, compelling fulfillment, and profound peace. She is a lawyer, arbitrator, adjudicator, mediator, speaker, trainer, musician, and ambassador for peace. She is also the founder of Guild of Adjudicators in Nigeria, abbreviated as GAIN, and is the pioneer coordinator of Justice Development and Peace Commission of the Catholic Cathedral of the 12 Apostles, Parish, Abuja. Lady Kwame is the convener of the Peace Agenda and the Peace Agenda Summit, and also a board trustee of the African Views Organization. Please help me welcome Lady Kwame. How are you doing?
Thank you, Tinashe. I'm doing well. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to introduce our next speaker, who is going to talk to us about the United States practice of addressing women in the legislature, especially about the United States Violence Against Women Act. This is a presentation in which we should be interested, because one of the viable ways of combating violence against women is by making and implementing laws that prohibit violence against women. Our speaker is the Vice President of International Federation of Women Lawyers, USA. She is an international attorney qualified in the United States and Poland. She has law degrees from the University of Cambridge, China University of Political Science and Law, the University of Warsaw, and the University of Iowa College of Law. She has worked and studied in 5 different countries. She is currently working with judges in the Alaska court system. Please join me in welcoming Agnieszka Geithner.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this conference, and thank you, Ukpeme, for the wonderful introduction. Tinashe, thank you for moderating this conference. It's been a pleasure to learn from all of you about the progress that already has been done towards greater women equality and protection of women in the world. And I just wanted to present the US perspective on how we can best protect women by addressing them in the legislature, and which steps we can take to ensure that the whole society is involved in protecting women's rights. I prepared a short presentation, so let me share my screen so that you can better follow me. I'm gonna pull it up now. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Let me start. Just one second. All right, I'll start my presentation with a discussion of the US Violence Against Women Act. This act is the primary legislative act that addresses how we can better ensure that women are protected in the name of law. This act was passed in 1994. So it's been already the law for over 25 years. It's been reauthorized by Congress every 5 years. However, the law has been lapsed since 2019 because of the political discourse. It wasn't possible to pass it up until, still has not been passed, but the progress has been made recently in On March the 17th of this year, the House of Representatives has approved the draft of the law, and it's currently awaiting approval in the Senate. This law is widely supported by national and international organizations, and it gives guarantees to women to protect their rights. I wanted to mention briefly a few elements that are staples of our VAWA, as I will call it. First of all, this program provides grants for research and education on domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. All the laws that I will address in this legislature relate to these 4 forms of violence against women: domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. The law also ensures provision of social and legal services to victims, also temporary visas to immigrant women and children who suffered violence from a US citizen or permanent resident. I had a little bit of experience with this kind of visa. I had the pleasure to assist victims of domestic violence and apply for EU visas on their behalf. Of course, any immigration process is not an easy process. However, it works and it still should be expanded. In addition, it provides separate programs for Indian tribes because Native American people are especially at risk of suffering domestic violence. And the law also provides for prohibition of forced marriage, which I believe it's something that should be expanded beyond the US borders. This act is divided into 15 different titles. Every title provides for a different sort of protection. I thought I would mention each title to show what kind of protections can be provided to women by law. The first category includes enhancing legal tools to combat domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. And it provides for so-called STOP grants, which allow enforcement and prosecution agencies to prosecute crimes of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. It also provides for funds to assist victims of crimes. And it also provides for funds to further legal outreach and education to undeserved populations. Next title provides for improvement of services to victims of domestic crime. This kind of grants are for programs that address domestic violence, dating violence, sexual and stalking, such as amending state legislature to prevent compelling the victim to testify. It also establishes at the local level services to victims of domestic violence, and it provides training related to trauma victims for law enforcement agencies. These kinds of tools are designed to allow enforcement agencies understand the problems and better address them. Next, the law provides for services, protection, and justice for young victims. It provides grants for outreach and education, especially youth. It also introduces programs to end female genital mutilation, as well as programs targeting sexual violence on campuses. It was already raised by previous speakers. It's really important to address domestic violence early on so that we can actually prevent it. Next, the law provides for violence reduction practices. Among others, it guarantees grants for programs reducing violence, including education, outreach, and policy development. Also grants towards collaboration between victim services providers, law enforcement agencies, prosecutors, courts, educational institutions, and healthcare providers. We believe that collaboration between different agencies, enforcement, NGOs, organizations is really important to address the issues of lack of women protection and gender equality. Further, the law aims to strengthen the healthcare system's response. It provides training to medical professionals and staff to respond to signs of domestic abuse and violence. It's important not only for enforcement agencies and prosecutors and courts to understand how to protect victims, but especially to train healthcare professionals to remedy such situations. Further, Title VI provides for safe homes for victims. Among others, grants for programs providing housing to victims of domestic violence. It provides protection from eviction, and also it includes a new definition of a victim of domestic abuse, which includes a dating partner, a caregiver, a person who's 50 years or older, and or a disabled person. It's just an example of how broadly we should expand the definition of a victim of domestic violence to make sure that it includes everyone. And previous speakers already discussed it. It should also include spouses, which I know in many places is quite controversial, whether married spouses can raise, for example, rape or another kind of domestic violence. Title VII provides for economic security for victims. This law intends to encourage state legislatures to provide for leave from work, for job protections, and for unemployment compensation. Because one of the many things that victims of domestic abuse and violence fear is lack of economic resources, what they will be able to do without their oppressor. This kind of law would ensure that they can take their time, they can take leave of work and support themselves. The next provision includes homicide reduction initiatives, which is conviction for domestic abuse and stalking, working as a bar to possessing firearm. I know this is more a US-based law because the problem of firearms is not present in many other countries, but in the US it is a real problem, and that's why the current legislature is pushing for passing the law that would prevent perpetrators of domestic violence from possessing a firearm, because too many women die from gun violence. Further, Title IX provides for safety for Indian women. It includes grants for enforcement and prosecution of domestic violence perpetrators, as well as collaboration between federal and tribal agencies. As I mentioned at the beginning, Native American women are especially at risk of domestic violence in the US. They have separate judicial systems, separate enforcement. It does not always comply with federal laws. They have separate laws, and that's why it's important to help them establish their own programs and their own laws. Title X provides that we should establish an office on violence against women, another body that will ensure an oversight over the protection of women. And just as an example, the director of this office shall maintain liaison with the judicial branches of the federal and state governments on matters relating to violence against women. The director shall provide information to the president, Congress, the judiciary, state, local, and tribal governments, and the general public. And lastly, the director shall develop policies, protocols, and guidelines, just to make sure there is someone who's on top of the ladder, political ladder, to ensure he develops policies and consults with other organizations on this topic. Title XI provides for improving conditions for women in federal custody. This is something I believe is not often addressed in the legislature, that women do have special needs when it comes to incarceration. So the law provides that women should obtain adequate health care, which includes mental health and also health care during pregnancy. They should also be placed reasonably close to families as much as possible. And these laws and regulations should facilitate re-entry into the society, as well as help seeking childcare and jobs, because these kinds of remedies would help women who need to reconnect with the society, but still have family obligations. Title 12 helps law enforcement to enhance public safety. It provides for communication between state, local, and tribal authorities in regard to background checks when purchasing firearms. It's another provision that relates to gun violence in the US and how we can ensure that women are not victims of gun violence. The next title provides for closing the law enforcement consent loophole. I'm not sure how the law looks like in other countries, but right now in the US, law enforcement officers, when they have any kind of sexual intercourse with inmates or even anyone who's in their custody, they can always say that it happened because of the victim's consent. Under this law, they will not be able to claim that the woman consented. Being in custody already implies that women is not free to go anywhere or free to think, and that's why this law might be a good idea. Title 14 relates to other matters that are not as important, but the last title, Title 15, relates to cybercrime enforcement. I think this is a new kind of solution that might be helping helping gender equality and protection of women. It establishes funds that are related specifically to training and resources towards enforcement and prosecution of cybercrime. Violence against women happens also on the internet. We should not forget about it. We have a separate title for that. Finally, just having one more minute, wanted to mention the International Violence Against Women Act. There's a pretty new law that was proposed in 2015, which its goal is to address violence against women in US foreign policy, meaning what the US can do to ensure that women's rights are obeyed everywhere else. But it focuses specifically on what US agencies can do to help other countries. It encourages those agencies to develop a 5-year program to direct the US aid to establish policies, programs, and funding to secure gender equality and women's empowerment. Finally, just wanted to mention a couple of controversies that are related to the AVAWA, to the Violence Against Women Act in the US. Not sure if these issues exist anywhere else, but when it relates to the current version of the law, many people disagree whether offenders convicted of domestic abuse and stalking should be barred from possessing firearm. As you know, in the US, many people support possessing firearms because of the rights provided for in the Constitution, and that's why it's a really contentious issue. And another issue is whether transgender women should be allowed to access women's shelters and serve in women's prisons. The question is whether women's rights include transgender women, and this is something that's being highly debated right now in the US. This is the end of my presentation. I wanted to deeply thank you for your attention and for allowing me to speak here and present the US view and the US efforts towards protection of women. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Lady Kwame, you're on mute if you were saying something. Okay, well, thank you so much for doing that presentation. I really am very happy with the fact that you touched on so many issues that I not really thought about when it comes to, well, what happens after the issue is reported to the law? Then how do we deal and how do we protect those families from an economic standpoint? And also mentioning, you know, with the transgender, we are living in a new world now, and there are so many issues that affect everyone. That's very important. And if that PowerPoint that you presented, if it's shareable, I think this can be something that will benefit with different nations and communities and countries when they come to implementing laws. And I'm pretty sure they could learn a lot from what you just presented in terms of the titles. Very, very informative. If it's shareable, I will ask if you can share it with us. Thank you for making that presentation, and we appreciate you being here, from sharing, you know, with the law from a U.S. perspective, especially when it comes to the firearms. And you are all aware of the Black Lives Matter movement. Everything ties into place, and it's all a cycle. It's a chain reaction of different events that all tie in together that affect each other. Any immediate questions from Lady Agnes, please? All right, again, if you have any questions, post them in the chat. We will address them at the end. But we appreciate you, Lady Agnes. Thank you for that powerful presentation. Thank you. All right, we are going to move on, and Chief Anita is here with us, and we are going to go ahead and have a presentation in place. If we can please put Chief Anita's presentation. Thank you. And Chief Anita, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here. Such an honor. All right, so I'm just waiting for that presentation to be posted, please.
I'm really enthused, very happy to be here. I really would like to thank African Views under the distinguished leadership of Dr. Wale Idris Ajibade and his team, wonderful team, I must say, that I have the opportunity of working with the wonderful team. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak all the way from Nigeria. And the topic this afternoon is the Gender-Sensitive Constitution Review for Nigeria. And I've listened to all the wonderful erudite speakers, and we seem to have a very common situation. But let me quickly introduce that women's issues have been an important and integral part of contemporary discourse, especially on issues of power and political leadership. For too long, women were perceived in various societies, particularly in the developing world, as second-class citizens and objects of developmental and governance process. Women, who constitute a greater proportion of the society, undertake substantial productive and reproductive assignments in the society, such as education, health, and food supply. Like in Nigeria, 80% of the agricultural value chain, the workforce, is from women. And yet, with all these contributions, women still, this predicament is prevalent in Nigeria, where women's participation is undermined due to sociocultural, political, and economic problems. And of course, I would add also religious problems. So at this stage, let me share my screen. Oh, it's already been shared. I see. So let me have the next slide. The next slide, please. So I'm actually representing WhisperNet. And let me just tell you about WhisperNet. Women in Sustainable Power Africa Network was established with the view of creating the platform for women to tap into Africa's potentials to become the leading voice to pursue aggressive industrialization through effective investments in the power industry in order to expand transmission and distribution towards powering the African region as a whole. But then we are part of the Association of Nigerian Women Business Network, a coalition of 52 other women organizations. And we came together to look into the constitution review when we were invited by the Senate in September 2020. And I think I really would like to I would like to discuss that the overarching rationale and argument for a gender-sensitive review of the Constitution is to provide a supreme legislation for gender-based issues, thus strengthening the redress of these pervasive problems and curbing their overwhelmingly negative economic and social impact. It strengthens acknowledgement of the fact that women's and men's experiences of violence differ. It would help to address the historically unequal power relations between men and women, which limits the economic and political potential of any society. The need for constitution review continued. The gender-based issues are so pervasive in our society for gender to be left unattended to in our constitution. So, for example, legal significance of gender as they are indicated on government documents and have provided different, and laws provide differently for the men and women. Pension systems have different retirement ages for men, and they have the different for men and women. Marriage is usually only available to opposite sex couples. Women are the highest, sufferers of domestic violence. And I really want to mention something here, that during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown in Nigeria, a lot of women suffered domestic violence from their husbands because for many years, they probably didn't know each other very well because they had to go different ways in the morning and come back later in the evening when they are tired. But during the lockdown, they had to stick with each other's differences and shortcomings, and the women were really at the bad end of it. In fact, some of them were killed, in Nigeria, and they had a lot of mental problems. And then a lot of raping took place during the lockdown. 4-year-olds were even being raped in Nigeria during the COVID-19 pandemic. So that is something very serious that we women have to look into. And then, of course, high cost of gender inequality, the opportunity cost of less than equal rights and fair empowerment of women is too high for a community, for a country anywhere in the world, especially for a country like Nigeria with a 50% of women population. Nigeria has no provision for women in the constitution. So I'll just leave it at that. Next slide, please. The challenges around constitution review in Nigeria. The lack of political will. Since the Nigerian constitution came into use in 1999, there has been a very evident lack of political will to review it. It was only in January 2011 that 2 amendments of the 1999 constitution were signed. On the 15th of March 2015, the Nigerian Senate voted down the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill. in 2016, the bill 116, which aimed to accord women's rights equal to those of men in various spheres of life, and to impose specific measures to address past and current discriminatory practices. Then we have the cultural religious setbacks. You know, it's very, very sad that in Nigeria and most countries in Africa, women are supposed to be seen and not heard because of our cultural and religious setbacks. And it's ingrained in the minds of Nigerians due to limiting cultural beliefs and religious beliefs that women, you know, should submit to men only. And by affecting people in government who would find it awkward to have women empowerment laws and rights modified into constitution. So what we have done in response to the invitation by the Nigerian Deputy Senate President on the 8th of September 2020 for a review of the 1999 Constitution, under the Association of Nigerian Women Business Network, 52 women organizations, including WISPANET, Women in Renewable Energy, and so many other women organizations, did the following. We constituted a committee and came up with content to be reviewed for women empowerment and gender sensitivity in the Constitution. We submitted the compendium to the Senate right in good time and engaged physical follow-ups. I even had to take some flights about twice to Abuja from Lagos to make sure that it was submitted physically. But you will not believe it, up till now that I'm speaking to you, we have not had any response from the Senate that our compendium is being attended to. And at this juncture as well, I would like to thank Dr. Wale and African Views for their contributions towards the compendium, because we really went around women in the diaspora to get feedbacks and to get their own suggestions before we could decide on what our conclusion would be in the compendium. So WISPANET, as part of NWBN, have also put up the Women National Business Agenda, with recommendations for Nigerian women-owned businesses. This was done with the support of the Center for International Private Enterprise, SIPE, Washington, D.C., USA. The policy recommendations of the Women National Business Agenda included the high rate of insecurity as one of the priorities, because women always, face violence in Nigeria. And then the inadequate power supply, which is actually my forte, under the Renewable Energy Act. Since 2012, we have not been able to review that Renewable Energy Efficiency Act, and it's not even been implemented. Even the one of 2012 has not been implemented. So we needed to put that as a priority issue. We have, dilapidated and poor road networks as one of the priorities as well, particularly as this affects food security, because in the agricultural value chain, the produce, are not being able to get to the market gate in good time because of the dilapidated road networks. We have gender, inequality in governance at all levels, because the 35% affirmative action had not been implemented in Nigeria. We have lack of access to finance. In fact, this is the most painful one for women, because 80% of the SMEs are formed by women, and yet they are not able to have access to finance from the financial institutions from the developmental banks or commercial banks. And even if they are to have access to it, it's so cumbersome to be able to fill all the forms, it's so stringent, and we really would like a lot of improvement on the implementation on the fiscal policies for women in Nigeria. So we have also been able, during the COVID-19 pandemic, because COVID-19 has exacerbated gender inequalities and poses a serious threat to the fragile gains made for women's economic empowerment. SME operated by women have been, incredibly hard hit by measures taken to contain the pandemic. So we have been able to propose capital punishment for rape cases in Nigeria, and this is, being pursued in the Senate at the moment as I speak to you. We believe that even if they would not give us the opportunity to have capital punishment for rape cases, at least the culprits will be jailed, for a very long time. And also women were able to put up soup kitchens, for a lot of victims that stay under the bridge. We have many bridges, road bridges in Nigeria, and most people, poor people at the bottom of the pyramid that are homeless, they stay under the bridges. And during the pandemic, we were able to put up soup kitchens to feed thousands and thousands of homeless people. And we were also able to train a lot of women on digital skill sets, because since we were locked down, the only means of communication is through the social media, and organizations can also meet only through Zoom. So we were able to help women to come up with digital skills and to train a lot of women on that. Next slide, please. So my recommendations this evening: a practical and sustainable strategy for localization of the Universal Agenda on Gender Equality, complementary to CEDAW Maputo, is very necessary for Nigeria. Following the self-determination procedure, the above must be overseen by women and designed to be readily embraced in the country and acceptable within developing societies standards. Since the problem takes many shapes and remains mostly elusive, the point of view remains unanimous that the reason for the slow progress is the disproportionality of investment in human resources and capacity building and utilization that stems from gender inequality. Establishment of commissions by different women groups nationwide that shall provide a comprehensive report on the challenges faced by its women and how to develop strategies to solve the problems in a manner consistent with the provisions in the current constitution. Organizations like ANWB and Association of Nigerian Women Business Network can develop a comprehensive national strategy for meeting challenges faced by women in Nigeria as a whole. This would also require updating the judicial, legislative, enforcement, and budgetary provision to address complex challenges of women sustainably, annually. But I would also like to add, before I conclude, that the Sustainable Development Goals from item 1 to 17 should actually be activated, and particularly Eradication of poverty is aligned with all the other items, and we need to do this by item 17, which talks about collaboration. We all need to collaborate to make sure that all these recommendations that I have put forward are implemented. Conclusions. To achieve gender-sensitive constitution review in Nigeria, organizations like WISPANET, Women in Renewable Energy, must to continue to work in tandem with the government and have synergies with all like-minded organizations, stakeholders like African Views. We must, in general, proactively support and push for initiatives for constitution review. A supreme legislative force around gender-sensitive issues as this will invariably contribute to the growing base of the country's GDP, making Nigeria a globally competitive economy and socially developed nation. A constitutional force lowering violence against women, gender inequities, and barriers faced by women entrepreneurs. This would immensely boost countrywide growth. After all, a poorly developed women segment of the society, which in the Nigerian case constitutes 50% of the population, is like flying an airplane with one engine, which means it could crash any moment. Thank you for listening. We must continue to work towards these changes.
Thank you so much, Chief Anita. This is very informative from different perspectives, however you want to look at it. She is really pinpointing on us women coming together to form these policies, create organizations, create communities, so that we can have these policies developed, and with the policies that are already in place, depending on what country you're from, how to change those policies so that they can go ahead and further address the issues that are on hand. She's part of different organizations, certainly a lady who knows what she is talking about, something that we can all learn from her and try to implement them when we are also working with our own communities, our own organizations. I really like the fact about how this starts with you as a person yourself. How do you want to make a change as a person, you, before you start implementing changes with other organizations and other people? So many good points mentioned, and with also the work that's being done currently in Nigeria right now, that's something certainly we could learn as a people, regardless of the country or continent that you are currently in. This organization has done so much work in terms of women fighting for their rights. Even when it comes to things like women trying to mitigate cases like rape cases, and how a small percentage can go from 35% to 40%, let's push it to 100% so that this issue is completely eradicated. Chief Anita, I want to tell you this. I know we've been working in the background before this program. Such an inspiration, and thank you so much for your advice and for all your informative words. We really appreciate you. And again, I will ask if that PowerPoint presentation is shareable. Please do share it in the chat. Because I really think it has so much great information that we can all learn from, and that we can start bridging the gap. I know somebody asked that question about how do we bridge the gap? Well, let's see what other countries are doing, and let's all put it in one place. So if that can be done, please go ahead and share it in the chat. Thank you, Chief. Okay. All right, so thank you so much for that. Do we have any immediate questions for Chief Anita, please? If you have a question, please raise your hand, unmute yourself, or send a message in the chat. I'm not seeing any chat messages in here, but if we have any questions, please feel free to post them. Because, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, we are at the end of our program almost with our speaking portion, and now we get to the fun part. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and post them in there. Before we move on, I'm not seeing any questions, which is why I'm proceeding. So Chief Anita, that usually calls for a very good explanation for what you were talking about. So thank you. All right. Thank you, Isaac, for that comment. Very great work in terms of what Nigeria is doing right now. We can all learn. So we will go ahead and move on to our next session, which is going to be the poetry section and, of course, the surprise section. But I know I did pause something to you in terms of question-wise with what we had our previous speakers talking about with Lady Gabriela, with Lady Angela, with Lady Lee, with Chief Anita, and also with His Honorable Henry McDonald. They talked about different issues here. Everybody was targeting something different. We talked about the economic factor, the psychological factor, the political factor, and then we're also starting to look at what it means for, okay, so we report this issue. I'm going to explain this in layman's terms. We report this issue, someone gets abused, they report this issue to the law, then what happens to them? How then do they continue fending for themselves and their family after the perpetrator for that abuse has been placed in jail? How then does this family that's now left fend for themselves economically? I would love to hear input. I would love for this to be the last part of everybody opening up to conversation. What are your inputs on there? What are your comments? What are your questions before we get into the last part of our program? What do you think with this whole entire segment that we're talking about with the speakers that we had? Let me get some input from people. And if you can, you want to turn your video on, you want to unmute yourself, let's make this very informal as possible as we can. Let's talk. Or maybe I will point out people. I love doing that, so let's talk. Any comments from anyone? All right, round robin session. If I call your name, unmute and speak. All right. I see you, Miss Laura Adjunta. You're smiling right now. Go ahead, unmute. I would love to hear your perspective. It doesn't matter what it is. Go ahead. How you doing?
Well, thank you. Thank you for providing me the link. Thank you for listening this global perspective. It's awesome. I love the presentation about the transgender issues. I came a little bit late. Love the giant Nigeria, and I love that we have this platform to be able to talk about issues that are important to us. I think I work with special needs. I work with, I have family who have issues with domestic violence, and it's really hard to empower them to take the lead, and it's really hard. So I think those were the two things that drove me to listen to you guys and see how there's women and people in general trying to figure out how can we help each other. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, that's another section too.
Thank you so much, Laura, for coming. Yeah. Thank you, Giovaccio. Thank you so much, Claudia. I'm so happy you all came to see this today and support us.
Thank you for joining us. So that's another area as well. What do we do with people who have special needs? And there's this additional violence that's being added on that. That's something that's very unfortunate and something that we need to address and find a solution into it as we implement in our policies. And as a community, as a family, really it starts with yourself. I know we are putting all this to the law, to the policies of the organizations, to the leaders, to our children, to our generation, to the youth groups, to people who are in charge of different companies, but it starts with you. What are you doing as a person to make this change? think about that. Any other inputs, ladies and gentlemen, before I move on to the next section?
All right, you haven't called me, but I would like to suggest.
Oh, go
I think
ahead.
this is a very great coalition, and I would like this network to remain. We need to consolidate our works and also begin to share resources. If we could develop a pool of funding avenues to be able to help countries, to be able to help initiatives so that it can be scaled up, then the campaign can be wider. There's also the need to mobilize men network groups that also have the interest of these women. And I can be one example. I can start that campaign and then we take it from there. So that is my suggestion. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Dr. Wale, I think this calls for a part 2 of this conference, and Mr. Isaac just volunteered to be a speaker. So there you go. Okay. All right. I would love to see a part 2 in terms of when we're talking about solutions and actions that are being implemented. I think we all agree on that. We have talked about the issues so much. I think we're tired. I am tired. So I think we would like a part 2 of discussing solutions, and we have deadlines in terms of when something is going to be implemented. I would love to hear, oh, we're doing this on such and such a day. If we're protesting, let me know. I have sneakers, I have posters, I will be there with you. If I need to fly, well, we gotta talk about that, but I will be there for you. Let's go ahead and implement the solutions. All right. Okay, I don't know if I have any other questions from anyone, but next
I have a contribution.
Oh, contribution, sure. I'm not sure who that is, but go on.
I have a contribution.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so from my side of the country, I would say good evening to you all. And then thank you very much for this opportunity that you've given to us, because it's very informative. I'm Sheila Kwote from Ghana. So I have been following this. And then my major question was, after reporting to the authorities, what next? But then I think the last speaker was able to elaborate on that the more. But then I don't see that happening in my country. So I would like to know what can be done when it comes to that particular type part. And then the gentleman who just spoke, talking about volunteering and all that, I think it's also a very great idea. Maybe we just don't end here. After talking today, maybe we have to do something. Implementation is very key. Get all the agencies involved. Maybe we can do something, because it's something that is really, it's of great concern to all of us. I just feel that it's so pathetic, you know, in my side of the country, the world, most of the times when people come out boldly to report their spouses and then to authorities, now family members now tag them, and it becomes very, it's so unfortunate how the people are going to fend for themselves. Even that night that the person goes to report, where is the person going to even sleep? No shelter around. So it's a task that I feel that we have to come up with something, not just maybe sitting talking about it, maybe implementation in the small countries. And then maybe if we can know, those of us who have NGOs, who have foundations, maybe if we can know where to run to when we receive such people who have encountered such. So they come to us and then we know where to run to solicit for funding, grants, or anything to help the situation. Thank you.
Absolutely. And that was Sheila, correct?
Yes, Sheila Kwote from Ghana.
Sheila, we will send you some information with the Ghana chapter that you can get in touch with. Dr. Wale, please put that in the chat, please. Thank you. Very insightful. Appreciate your input on this. We appreciate you, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Ms. Terry, go ahead, yes.
Yeah, if I may, thank you. And I want to just amplify everything that was said previously relative to implementation and solutions. expanding, for instance, safe houses. It's wonderful to have a safe house. However, what about if we expand those safe houses to have viable resources that are there? So when a woman is at a safe house, she's not just, I mean, I know it's a time of crisis, and so you have to tend to have psychological needs, physical needs. There might be some physical needs as well, but how about also helping her to think about what the next steps for her? So if she requires some kind of short-term training, if you can point her to short-term jobs, training to get her ready to get into the workforce if she's never been in the workforce before. Those are the kinds of things, progressive things we need to be thinking about as we implement solutions. So so you're addressing more than just one need. The resources are there. The government is another area that can be expanding. Those social measures that government puts in place, it's not just food cards. It should not just be food cards, right? It's food cards plus. So we have to think about those things. Third thing I want to add is the use of our technology. We should be helping and challenging people to use their technology, not just to play games, but there are little knobs on the devices that can be used as prevention against domestic violence, or to reach out to the authorities when a situation is becoming untenable, when you are feeling insecure in whatever in your surroundings. So it's educating people as to all of these things that we have in our possession today that we don't leverage in the best way. So all of these things collaboratively, in addition to thinking about more, always funding, we have to get more resources, more funding to expand these solutions. But I think it's a great idea to start somewhere. You must start with who you are, what you have, and expand what you have and collaborate. When we get together, we will reach more people as opposed to one organization trying to do everything. If we combine our resources, we would be able to reach a more massive amounts of people. Thanks. I wanted to just share that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I still call on this, our next conference, let's make it a conference of action. We have talked about this awareness for God knows how many years, probably since I was born. So before that, let's have a conference where we're talking about action. What are you doing? What has to be done? What can we do to help you? What's the deadline? What are you trying to achieve? Let's be part of that. Let's have a conference of that. Dr. Wale, this is your next challenge. And if you want me to be the host, maybe you can bribe me enough. Anyway, so let's move on, ladies and gentlemen. I can see you, Lady Ugoma. You look so pretty. And she is going to be doing our poetry session. And we have one more person who is going to, we have one more thing. Like I said, it's a surprise. So if you need to drink water, let me know, because it's going to include your vocal cords, I'm telling you. But for now, let's go ahead and enjoy this. This is from Lady Ugoma. Dr. Wale, are we able to put the spotlight on her? If not, I will go ahead and introduce and let you know who she is. Okay, Lady Ugoma Gwendolyn Azevedo. She is a poet, a singer, a composer, a politician, y'all, a speech writer, and an interior designer. So she has something special for us. And here we have her to share the surprise, one of the surprises that we have. So Lady Ugoma, go ahead.
I bring you greetings from Nigeria. Happy World Poetry Day. And the title of this poem is On Bended Knees. Not like Boys to Men, a woman's cry from the heart. Stop the discrimination. It gives me shingles, rain in my pancreas. My heart beats faster, racing faster than a racehorse. On bended knees, waiting, watching and praying, when will this all end? A woman is the pillar of the society. When dealing with a woman, exercise sobriety. Having this at the back of your mind, putting into cognizance that what a man can do, a woman can do better. I'm not debating masculinity. Rather, I'm making a case for femininity, inclusive participation, and rationalism. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very beautiful. That's a poem, everybody. That's poetry. I don't know who likes spoken word or who likes poetry, but this is it right here. This is how you do it. This is how you present it. Okay. This is also something that you will teach your younger children. Follow this path of speaking up, of speaking like this. Thank you so much, Lady Ugoma.
You're welcome.
What gave you, I have a question for you. What gave you the inspiration of that speech? What does bended knees mean?
On bended knees, a woman is a mediator, a go in between the husband and the children. A woman is a go in between the government and those are the lowest cadre, the poorest of the poor. A woman is a mediator, and a woman has power. When she speaks, she has the manipulative power. A woman is strong, like Shaggy wrote in his poem, Strength of a Woman. There really is a strength of a woman. So if your father has refused to give you something, and when the mommy has the power, the mommy is in the mouth, the mommy has a way of softening the man's heart. And so women have power. That's what inspired me. You cannot do without a woman. You just can't do without women. They are the most relevant aspect of society. You cannot, that's why they say when you train a girl child, you train a nation, because it is that girl child that will eventually graduate to becoming a woman and becoming an ambassador or a president. Thank you, ma.
Yes. Amen. Jeez, this is that's important. Without a woman, we would all not be here. All of us right here.
Indeed.
Very important. Very beautiful spoken. Thank you. We appreciate you here. We appreciate you just sharing those beautiful words with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any comments or any questions, any beautiful words to share? There are some beautiful comments for you, Lady Ugoma, in the chat.
Yeah.
Feel inspired.
Yes,
and anyone who has young children, please encourage them to do a poetry. Let them share that. Okay? Let them share that and see what this happens. They will be Lady Ugoma one day. Let them write poetry and have them repeat that. That's how we start skills. Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Oh, you're welcome. Are we all ready for the fun part? Lady Jessica, let me introduce you. Lady Jessica Latte. She is a graduate from the University of Ghana with a bachelor's in political science and French. She aspires to work in the field of international relations and international law to help eliminate social and racial injustice. She has a passion for things of God and aspires to set an NGO to help the less privileged in the future. She has lived in Accra, Nantes, and has globetrotted the EU, European Union. This has given her a great worldview, and she hopes to be able to incorporate change in Africa to bring development to our dear continent. Lady Jessica, why don't you share with us what this part is, which really concludes our program. So you have the platform. Jessica, go for it.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here on this platform today. It's an honor and a privilege to be part of this program. This program has actually been one that has been timely because in recent weeks, we have had a lot of social injustices against women, especially in Ghana. There have been lots of deaths, and it's not really a good thing to hear each day, hearing bad news of women being abused and all of that. But I've learned so much from this program today, and I hope that with time, people are going to continue to learn and unlearn to be able to move the equality that we are all seeking for forward so we can all achieve what we are looking for. So I'm so happy to be here today and to be a part of this. We are actually going to be singing the women's anthem right now. I'm going to be leading the session, and I'd love for everyone else to join in the refrain if you know it, or whoever has the lyrics can display the lyrics so that everyone else can join in the refrain. But I can play it for my background so that we can all listen to that. So if we are ready, I think we can start now. Is there anyone who has the lyrics, please?
They are coming up. Really what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that we should be seeing all the phones unmuted because we are all going to be singing together. This is being recorded, y'all, so don't embarrass us, okay? So let's unmute and let's sing together. All right, come on, let's do this together. The lyrics have been placed in front of you. He is going to lead this. And we are all going to sing. Please don't make this my only voice singing this. I do not have a singing voice. Okay, so let's go.
Okay, let's
go. We don't
everyone.
know the song.
All across the world, women
are trying to be
free. No longer in the shadows, forced to stay behind. Side by side, the true equality.
All right, let's wait for Jessica because she's gonna lead. So Jessica, you take the lead.
Okay, I think, okay, we start now.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, you have to give us 1, 2, 3, go. You have to make us aware. So you say 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go.
Q.
All across the nation.
All around the world.
Women
to be free. No longer in the shadows, forced to stay behind.
Side by side,
true equality.
Nobody's singing.
We are singing
Everywhere.
Let it ring around the world.
Sing a song.
Sing a song.
Women
everywhere.
Equality, development, and peace.
Women can't be silent
when around the world. People and hungry children cry. So sing now for justice and development, and hold the rights of all the people high.
So sing
a song
for
women everywhere. Ring around the world and never cease. So sing a song
for
for
women
women everywhere. Equality, development, and peace.
Women
are now working to build a better world, where the love can rest shore. Let men lay down their weapons and learn to love and share. And people should bring in unto war.
So
Sing a song
for women
everywhere. Let it ring around the world and never sing a song for women everywhere. Equality, development, and peace. Bravo!
Yay!
Everywhere. Let it ring around the world and never cease.
So sing a song
For women everywhere.
Okay.
Yay. All right. So
that was good. That was good.
Very right. Well, I know somebody made a comment and said that we are probably not listening to it at the same time, but either way, Jessica, you want to tell them what this song is?
Yes, I think this song brings about a lot of solidarity amongst women. It's something that can be like a driving force between us. So I feel like even if we're not listening or singing at the same time, the fact that we are doing it alone as women in unison, even if we are not going by the lines and all of that, it still shows a lot of solidarity. So I think it's good. And it's a song that's just trying to tell or throw light on the essence and the value of women and how women can help to bring about development and peace, and how women are crying out for justice and what women can offer basically. So I think it's a great way to bring us all together to work towards what we are looking for. Thank you.
Absolutely. And for anyone who wants to listen to the song, I believe it is on YouTube. So I will ask either you, Jessica, or Dr. Wale, please post that in the chat so people can go ahead and research that song. We are at the end of our program. So thank you. I know it was supposed to end at 12:30, but you know, things happen. So we are at the end of our program. I want to say I'm very blessed and I'm very appreciative of everybody here who gave their input of such important matters. Like I mentioned, we want to move on and coming up with solutions and actionable solutions. What are we going to do next? I do believe that we talk about issues all the time. Awareness, programs, issues from like 25, 35 years ago. What are we going to do? What's our deadline? What are the results? Let's start doing our conferences from there. So thank you, everybody. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure. And I will introduce Dr. Wale, who organized this whole thing and was terrorizing us behind all this. I'm going to say this, but very wonderful person, and I will let him do the conclusion. But it is so beautiful to see everybody's face on here. You are all wonderful. You're all blessed in your way, and just sending positive energy to everybody. All right. Thank you. Dr. Wale, it's all on you now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Really, Tina, as usual, you spread your wings today, and you took us on the flight. You landed us safely again back to ourselves. Lady Terry, amazing. Padmini, Lady Upeme, Lady Beatrice, Lady Agnieszka, all of us that have contributed so immensely today, and all our sleepless night, I think, have come to fruition. I have nothing else to add because you have done everything that is just to this occasion. I want to thank all our guests as well, our wonderful guests who have worked so tirelessly to contribute to this. Ambassador McDonald's, really, we apologize and we send our condolences to Aja Fatumata, the Vice President of Gambia, to the Minister of Social Dialogue in Senegal, to the council member in a friend in Senegal, Madam Innocence Ntap, our friend Mary Simat, excuse me, Madam Ntap in Senegal, Mary Simat in Kenya, Lady Grange in Jamaica. Can thank our sister from PNG, who was fascinating today. Again, all of us here, our wonderful poet who really just put a huge spice, a beautiful spice on everything that we have done today. Gabriela, amazing.
Thank you.
From Brazil. All of you guys are just amazing. I can't thank you all enough for what you do. I want you to know that what you do is so important. Lady Chief Anita, your tireless work. This is someone I know that she's just as sleepless as I am. She's amazing juggling 100 things at the same time, and I mean huge mountains, moving mountains, and doing wonderful things for women. I want you all to know that it is people like us who do everything we can, just in simple terms, as it might seem here, that really make a shift in the world. And all the things that we're doing is so incredible. You guys have done wonderful justice to this program. I cannot thank you enough. All I can say is just thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll play the original song before to dismiss us. I think Tinashe will permit me to do that. Is that okay?
Go for it. And everyone, really have a good night, have a good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Again, thank you. Next time we meet, we'll be speaking about actionable items. But listen, you are all a blessing. You're all wonderful. I affirm that. Beautiful people. Thank you.
Thank you.
All across the nations, all around the world, women are longing to be free. No longer in the shadows, forced to stay behind, but side by side in true equality. So sing a song for women everywhere. Let it ring around the world and never, never cease. So sing a song for women everywhere. Equality, development, and peace. Women can't be silent when all around the world people hurt and hungry children cry. We'll sing out loud for justice and development and hold the rights of other people high. So sing a song for women everywhere. Let it ring around the world and never, never cease. So sing a song for women everywhere. Equality, development, and peace. Women now are working to build a better world, where the love of peace can rest on every shore. Where men lay down their weapons and learn to love and share, and people work to bring an end to war. So sing a song for women everywhere. Let it ring around the world and never, never cease. So sing a song for women everywhere. Equality, development, and peace. So sing a song for women everywhere. Let it ring around the world and never, never cease. So sing a song for women everywhere. Equality, development, and
Peace.
Wonderful. Once again, thank you all. I want to also quickly acknowledge Lady Upeme, Lady Terry Inns, Lady Angwei Lee, whose time in China now is so very late and is able to stay with us. Thank you very much. And also one of our best friends and closest ally, the World Women Organization. I want to show our appreciation and gratitude to Lady Angela RM, who joined us from Malaysia, which is even in earlier time than in China. So we thank you so much for staying up and being with us this late. Everybody, thank you. And if I fail to mention your name, it's really just out of my shortcomings, but do forgive me because my heart is with you. Thank you all so very much. Have a good night. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.
Good night. Bye, everyone. Thank you. This has been amazing.
Bye. Thank you all. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Jesse.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye. Hello, Lady Joni.
Hi there. So you're ending now.
Yes, we're just closing.
Okay. Oh, well.
Was it beautiful? You'll see the video. It's
Oh,
very
but you're
good.
recording. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, I just got finished with my other meeting. So,
Thank you very much for
all
joining
right.
this beautiful event. Thank you, everyone. Good
Bye.
day. Bye.